My name is John. I'm 65 years old, and if you told me 5 years ago that my life would turn into the kind of twisted story people whisper about over coffee, I would have laughed in your face. But here I am, an old man with creaky knees and a heart heavy from years of loyalty, betrayal, and one sweet, calculated revenge. I met Margaret when I was 32 and she was 28. She came from money, old money. Her father owned a chain of hotels across 3 states, her mother sat on charity boards, and her siblings were scattered across law firms, banks, and investment houses like chess pieces her father placed strategically. Me? I was a carpenter. Not the flashy kind with design degrees, but the old school type who built furniture with his hands, who smelled of cedar and sweat, and who carried calluses the size of coins. When I first met Margaret, she told me straight out, "My family will never approve of you," and they didn't. Her father, a proud man with white hair and sharper words than knives, made me sign a prenup before we married. I didn't mind. I loved her, and to me, marriage wasn't about money, it was about us. The prenup basically said that I'd never be entitled to her family's wealth, no matter what. That seemed fine to me. I had my 2 hands, my skills, and my pride. So we got married. We had nothing fancy. Just a courthouse wedding, a modest apartment, and dreams of building a life together, and for a long time, I thought we did. I built our first home with my own hands. Every floorboard, every cabinet, every railing. I worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7, making furniture and renovating homes. I was never rich, but I made enough to keep food on the table, fix the roof when it leaked, and send Margaret on little vacations she loved so much. She, on the other hand, never worked a day after we married. She stayed home, joined book clubs, gardened, and kept herself busy with hobbies. I didn't mind. I told myself it was my duty to provide, and honestly, I liked being the kind of man who could. But as the years passed, I noticed something. Her attitude shifted. Where once she'd look at me with admiration, she began looking at me with quiet resentment. She'd say things like, if I'd married differently, I wouldn't still be clipping coupons. Or, you're a good man, John, but sometimes I feel like I settled. Those words dug into me, but I swallowed them. I loved her. I stayed. Fast forward to when I turned 64. One morning, Margaret woke me up with a scream. Not a scream of terror, but one of shock and joy. She was holding a lottery ticket in her hands, shaking like a leaf. "John! We won! $11 million. She shrieked. At first, I thought she was joking. But no, she showed me the numbers, the matching ticket, the official confirmation. It was real. 11 million. I hugged her, kissed her, spun her around in our kitchen like a young man. All I could think was, finally. Finally, after years of hard work, after living modestly, after sacrificing so much, life gave us a break, but that joy didn't last. She started dressing differently, going out more, meeting new friends. She talked down to me in public, like I was some old rag she had outgrown. She even suggested I stop working, saying, "Why bother? We don't need your little carpenter money anymore." That hurt. My work was my pride, my identity. But I tried to adjust. I thought maybe she was just overwhelmed with sudden wealth. Then one evening, she sat me down at the dining table, the same table I had built 30 years ago with my bare hands, and said the words that gutted me, "John, I don't want to be married anymore." Just like that, she told me she'd met someone, some retired lawyer from her country club. She wanted me out of the house. She said I'd be taken care of with a small allowance if I left quietly. I remember staring at her, my hands trembling. This was the woman I had built a life with, sacrificed decades for, and she was discarding me like trash. I asked her, "What about everything we've been through? What about us?" She smirked and said, "Don't make this harder than it has to be, John. You'll be fine. You've always been." Simple, that word, simple, cut deeper than a blade. And that's when I remembered the prenup that I dug through our old files, searching for that prenup her father had made me sign all those years ago. It was yellowed with age, but still clear, and as I read it carefully, I noticed something her family's lawyers must have overlooked. The prenup only applied to her family's money. It said nothing about jointly acquired wealth during the marriage, the lottery winnings. They weren't inherited. They weren't gifts from her family. They were acquired during the marriage. Which meant they were marital property, half of it was mine. I didn't confront her immediately. I let her think I was defeated, broken, ready to accept her scraps. She grew bolder in her cruelty, openly parading her new man around, laughing with her friends about how she'd finally be living the life she deserved, but while she gloated, I went to work that I found a lawyer, an old buddy's son, sharp as a tack and hungry to prove himself. I handed him the prenup and the lottery documents. His eyes lit up. "John, she screwed up," he said. "You're entitled to half. And if she tries to fight it, she'll lose. Badly." So we filed. When Margaret got served the papers, she stormed into my workshop, red-faced and shaking. "How dare you?" she screamed. "This money is mine." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, Margaret. It's ours. Or rather, half mine." She sputtered, threatened, cried, but I didn't budge. For the first time in decades, I stood tall against her. The court battle was brutal. She tried every trick in the book, claimed the ticket was hers alone, said I had no right to it, even tried dragging my character through the mud. But the law was clear. The judge ruled in my favor. Out of $11 million, I walked away with $5.5 million, but it wasn't just the money. It was the look on her face when the judgment was read, the disbelief, the rage, the humiliation. She had tried to throw me away like garbage, and instead, I walked away with half the fortune she thought she owned. I took my share and moved into a quiet house by the lake. I bought myself tools, set up a workshop, and started building again. Not because I needed the money, but because it's who I am. And you know what? I've never been happier. As for Margaret. Last I heard, her new man drained a good chunk of her money on investments that went nowhere. She's still rich, but not as rich as she thought she'd be. And she's bitter, lonely, and angry. Meanwhile, I sit on my porch, sip my coffee, and smile. Because sometimes, revenge doesn't come with fire and fury. Sometimes it comes quietly, signed by a judge, and deposited neatly into your bank account. It was her family's precious prenup that made it all possible. I am 65 now. I don't have the energy I once did. My knees ache when the weather turns cold, and I know my years ahead are fewer than those behind me. But when I think about everything I endured, the years of sacrifice, the betrayal, the humiliation, I also think about the moment I walked out of that courtroom, a free man with millions in my account. For once in my life, the scales balanced. So if you ask me whether I regret marrying her, whether I regret the decades of toil, I'll tell you this: no. Because without it, I wouldn't know the taste of true justice, and let me tell you, after 65 years of living, nothing tastes sweeter.